What's up, guys? Hope everyone is doing well. In this video, I'm going to be going over some updates for Bitcoin, but nonetheless, to go ahead and get it started here, just want to quickly touch on the 4-hour chart here. As I mentioned in the last video, there is this descending yellow resistance that was recently multiple times flipped into support, really 3 times with this minor deviation right here. Eventually, obviously, Bitcoin moved up recently, having a nice V-shaped recovery after the what many people are calling a shakeout, the over $2 billion worth of liquidations, worse than the crash of COVID, Luna, FTX, going back, really one of the most notable liquidations over the last 7 years, if not longer. And then obviously Bitcoin coming down so far at this point, approximately retesting the resistance here again, going all the way back to December 17th at around approximately $108,000. There are these 2 vector candles right here within this recent move up for Bitcoin that created a vector zone, which at this point is very tiny. It would just be this black zone here that is pretty much 100% recovered at this point. So when it comes to vector zones, outside of coming down here to this one, from around 81.4 all the way up to around basically $85,000, there's not much else in terms of the vector zones below. Again, there is the 800 estimated moving average here, basically anywhere from around 89.5 upwards. Just 89.5, $90,000 approximately. Best case scenario to see Bitcoin ultimately hold the what has been resistance here, flip it into support, see Bitcoin continue to go up here, solidify trading above the orange zone, and then actually finally continue to move higher here. Not getting rejected here at this vector zone, basically like 104.5 to around 105,000, and also very notable to not get rejected somewhere right here within this black descending, broadening resistance zone, going all the way back to here on January 20th, when we saw Bitcoin here wick up to the current all-time high, although locally, because I think we're going to see more likely than not Bitcoin go higher here over the next few months. Right now, again, thinking more likely than not, we'll see Bitcoin top out sometime Q2, at latest Q3. Again, just generally sometime this year. I don't really, like a lot of people are talking about, maybe there's going to be some sort of super cycle, or whatever terminology one may want to use, and with respect to the fundamental landscape, with how pro-crypto, pro-Bitcoin the current American administration is. Really the growing adoption worldwide, and the idea of something which I spoke about recently, not here on the channel, but with respect to the similar to how back during the Cold War there was the notion of a space race. Now with the whole boom of AI and the technological singularity leading to associated with artificial general intelligence, which should kind of really be essentially the apex of artificial intelligence, and how complex it is becoming, and rapidly so, with blockchain really being something very much so relevant to that, especially with the whole DePIN sector, decentralized physical infrastructure networks, and XYO, one of the more prominent coins that I cover here on this channel. But a lot of people are, again, bringing this back to the point I'm trying to make, bringing this up with this whole idea or notion that Bitcoin might be entering a prolonged bull market, maybe over the next 4 years while Trump is in office, leading into roughly the end of this decade, where some people are thinking Bitcoin's going to go to 300, 500,000, maybe even upwards towards 1 million in a continuous bull run, with no bear market in between, which I think that I would agree that Bitcoin's going to be somewhere around 1 million to like 1.4 million by around 2030, 2032, 33, roughly. But I think there will be one bear market, in between from now until that all-time high around $1 million to $1.4 million. It also would be very much so relevant to the whole, obviously the Bitcoin strategic reserve, which recently Trump's crypto czar David Sachs coming out and saying that they're going to evaluate a Bitcoin reserve, that it's something that's being taken seriously, and I think ultimately that's essentially inevitable. a lot of people were somewhat complaining about the fact that there wasn't an executive order for it. It didn't come, day one, or as soon as perhaps maybe was, being implied or maybe even explicitly said. I don't particularly recall just exactly what Trump said or his surrounding administration, but I think it might be for the better that they're going more of a gradual, like methodical route to really set in to stone a Bitcoin reserve that can't be taken away whatsoever or easily taken away by future administrations that aren't pro Bitcoin or pro crypto. But here for this daily chart, we also see, again, same descending resistance here in black on the daily. Right now it is managing to, without seeing the deviation, really that deviation that was shown in that 4-hour chart was this massive wick right here, beginning all the way at 97.4, wicking all the way down to 91.5. So far it's very crucial that it's continuing to hold up on this. Again, best case scenario, this will hold as support. It also is, as you can see here at the very bottom of the 50 EMA band. I mean, going really back to generally this entire portion of these 3 local lows set here for Bitcoin from around late December to mid-January 24 to 2025. We saw with this one here around mid-January, wicking down and coming closer towards the bottom and finding support, and then moving up to under 9K. So perhaps best case scenario, again, we'll see this bounce here, be able to get above this orange zone right here, which has been relatively important so far in this sideways trading the Bitcoin's been in for. I mean, at this point, since mid-November to now in February. So, I mean, we're looking at about, 2.5 months or so. Right now, the top of the EMA band sits at rounding it up to 101,000. So that's going to be important to get above. Although, again, similar circumstance here with the 200 EMA being at around 80, basically 84,000, with this vector zone here being around 80, basically 85,000, all the way down to essentially 80,000. So I mean, this is totally in the playbook. Again, even lower than that, down to 60,000 is in the playbook at the absolute bottom of the barrel, in my opinion. I don't think that's particularly going to happen. Looking here at the RSI and its descending resistance, as I've been pointing this out, we've had this trading below it. Bitcoin kept getting rejected, recently broke above it, was above it, then has now come back below it, and looks as if it wants to be, as you can see here, coiling back up and wanting to break back above. So again, there also could be, with the fact that we see the RSI coming outside of the Bollinger Bands a lot of the times, not all the time, it's not a guarantee, but it typically signals that the local low has already been put in or it's very close. Although at this point, I would say if that's signaling a bullish circumstance or scenario, then I would say the local low has probably already been met. Especially a lot of times with these liquidation events, especially with how significant and massive this one was. I mean, if you go back to March of 2020 during Black Thursday, COVID, if you look at the FTX, these liquidations and these collapses associated with the fundamental landscape of the crypto market, Bitcoin specifically, were right at the very, bottom, especially with FTX at the bottom of the prior bear market. And then, with the COVID crash associated with March 2020 and Black Thursday being the second bottom of the double bottom of the phase 1 that characterizes that price action from 2018 to 2021 at $64,000 to $69,000. Also, again, MACD is currently in this green zone, which has been a crucial support going all the way back to the beginning of this bull market. So perhaps we are seeing some form of double bottom essentially here, where it specifically looks like a type of double bottom that I call a type 2, where type 2 is because there's these two peaks here, and it's what sets the double bottom is shaped like an M, and then it finally goes towards the upside. So that zone's been very crucial. Could very well find support there. The MACD histogram currently right now is looking to ease up and could be further supported by the fact that there appears to be some support being found here along this important trend line in the 50 EMA band. Which all this really kind of makes sense and tied into a bigger picture once I get to the final chart of this video. But looking here at this daily chart, I adjusted the uptrend here. This was previously in black in the prior video. I adjusted it just a little bit to more so be a little bit more neat, I suppose, is one way to put it. Really kind of basing it off. This is a touch point here back in, roughly leading into mid-September 2024. Here around mid-October 2024. I mean, we saw support here, the end of that 8 to 9 month consolidation. roughly around like 52, 53, 54,000 here mid-October. 59, 60,000 support. So it's also support here on 67, 68K in November. And this led into what we've seen recently for Bitcoin. So far, there is also this support zone that has been it's been held since really this right here was the major thrust. And then once Bitcoin here reached, roughly around approximately 90 to 92,000 mid-November, here the volume started to die down a little bit and started to just kind of gradually kind of just waver up towards the upside here, which then produced this, what was support. And ever since then, obviously, as I've been pointing out, this has been acting as resistance, where we now see this here support going all the way back really to November, late November here, 2024, December 2024, and then these three main local lows set here. And then leading into now, will we continue to find support here? I'm currently leaning to that being the case, but again, could definitely go lower, as I mentioned multiple times in the various different price targets. Essentially, obviously here having a similar vector zone here that I've been mentioning on the prior charts. Perhaps even lower if things really get bad, especially let's say if there's a black swan event. Let's say a war escalates, or anything could happen. Something catastrophic could happen, like a meteor or asteroid or something hitting Earth. Who knows what can happen. But when it comes to there's no vector zones here on this daily chart above price. So essentially at this point, it's just coming to this horizontal support here, basically at around 105,000 up to like 106, 108, 109,000. And then there's also the chance again for Bitcoin to come up to around like 115, 16,000, get rejected here again, then come down, and then maybe whether it comes down this low, or if it does something along these lines and does something like that, or what I think is more likely than not is that it would probably just take that out right off of the bat. But if we look here at this RSI, this one's showing more of a clear downtrend, not having been broken yet. Again, we're seeing the Bollinger Bands. RSI go below the Bollinger Bands. We are seeing the MACD again below the 0 point. More reset then going all the way back to October back here. MACD also appears to be wanting to simmer down a little bit as well for the bearish volatility and volume. Really, again, just to kind of tie all of this into the bigger picture here, as I mentioned on a community tab post within the last like 24, maybe a little bit long. Well, yeah, sometime within the last 24, like 30 hours of this potential bull flag that we see here. Also looking at this on the line chart, perhaps could appear a tad bit more clear, where we see the descending resistance and the ascending support. Also, if we take a look here at the volume, we can see that the volume here is descending, which is also another characterization or attribute of the bull flag. This, in this case, essentially would be more like a pennant flag. But I said the price targets would be anywhere from like 190,000 up to like 223,000. That's if I take that's if I were to take like the maximum here and then take more reasonable. So that's from wick to wick, where this is from candle close or candle open to candle close, and that creates, up here we have around 190,000 all the way up to around 223, 24, 25,000. Although let's say that the flag is more so kind of, or the flagpole is just really here, so that one to put a price target upwards towards basically 170,000, where the flagpole, instead of being something like this or something from here, is rather beginning here from late October last year, consolidating and then breaking up towards, like I said, 170,000. Although regardless of the whole price target of this pattern right now, obviously just being a probability, just a potential, could definitely break towards the downside, especially if Bitcoin ends up moving lower over the next few weeks, likely. But a lot of times with these forms of patterns, it's it's relatively frequent to see a fake out towards the downside, and then it moves back up and continues to go higher here. But we got to go over these derivative indicators here to further show similarity between basically when Bitcoin is where it is currently, factoring in the bull flag, the probability that I was speaking about, and then in comparison to back here during roughly the same time period from around December, January, February. Again, very similar to also back here around, more so this was more towards January, February, March. Again, all roughly same time frame, December, January, February, March, where we're reaching these midpoints, and then the final move, midpoint, final move, midpoint, final move, where these midpoints are the midpoints, obviously, of each of these overall impulses here towards the upside that characterize, again, this 5-stage impulse wave. Now, when it comes to the indicators, if we look here at the RSI, mainly I just want to compare here, again, same time period, 2024, compare it to essentially the same time period, 2025, just a year later, and we can see that there is a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pivot points, and then the final move. Seeing something very similar here as well, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pivot points, where we see the move back towards the upside, very similar to the last time around. Also, there is the descending support on the RSI, whereas when we look at the price, here it is essentially horizontal, but there was a slight upwards tilt when you look at the way that the open of the candles or closes of the candles, the actual bodies of the candles themselves instead of the wicks. But this time around, there's more of an ascending structure. So we're seeing, in terms of the pivot points, similarity. In terms of the hidden bullish divergence, a similarity. Then there's also, again, back here, it didn't quite do that. Same thing. There's also 0, 1, 2, 3 move towards the upside. But definitely 2024 here and 2025 are quite similar. We also look here at the stock RSI. I can see from around 25,000 August 2023 leading into when Bitcoin was breaking 30,000, and then it retraced around January, February, then moved back up towards 75K by around March 2024. Looking very similar to what has done more so recently in leading into 2025, where we saw the stock RSI shoot towards the upside, come down roughly to just generally the same area here. Also you can see this is just continuing to go downwards, especially from this pivot point here to this final pivot point, such as right here, these two pivot points. Again, showing a hidden bullish divergence. The MACD, not really too notable, but I mean, you can see the MACD during the midpoint will slope downwards, just as it sloped downwards here as well. This time around having a more clear hidden bullish divergence than this time around, because it was short-lived more so in comparison to how long Bitcoin's been trading in this intermediary stage in between these two legs of these waves of this 5-stage impulse, where this first time around was from December 4th really to January. I think January, so 2 months, whereas this one has been, depending upon where you start it, when it started around mid-November to now, we're seeing around 2.5 months. So obviously this one's taking a little bit longer, not too much longer though, especially if Bitcoin breaks towards the upside by around mid to late February, early March. Like I said, there also could be that fake out that it extends it maybe into April for a bullish breakout. Also, if you look here at the MACD, you can see during the second leg of so really the third aspect of the impulse wave, looking at it that way, where you see these two humps here in the histogram of the MACD, where most notably you see this first one dies down, it doesn't flip bearish, such as, for example, here or for here, and then it just has another move towards the upside. Could be seeing something very similar, whereas right now, you can't really tell, but there is right now currently the histogram is flipping towards the downside, although within the next week, so around the next 2 days, 18 hours, within the next, really, I mean, just generally within this current month of February, that could change, and we could see this histogram flip here back towards the upside and see the histogram do something very similar again, back to comparing it to the second leg or the third stage of this impulse. Also can look here at the SMIIO, seeing something very similar, where we see this move towards the downside, comes up, and makes this double top rim looking format. Whereas this time around we also see something relatively similar, where coming down, starts to move back up. It's getting close to the signal line here. The SMIIO, the white line, getting close to that signal line here. It wasn't a crossover this time around, nor was there a crossover, this time around. Obviously, it wasn't even close whatsoever. Larger distance. Given the decay, the lengthening so far, not just within a current phase and cycle, but overall in Bitcoin's all-time history, if there is seen a brief cross here, that wouldn't necessarily be a problem totally, which might be more likely than not. We'll see this brief cross here, and then it'll cross back above, move towards the upside. But I totally forgot about this and wanted to stitch this in here to further show the similarities, into, especially not only with the temporal trend, with the fact that these are the intermediate, these kind of liminal transitory stages between each of the legs of each of these. Again, with this 5-stage impulse wave here going towards the upcoming all-time high. The last thing I want to point out again is just the macro, the phase cyclical, according to the framework that I work within with respect to Bitcoin, using these Fibonacci retracements here, where we can see from bear market top here to bear market low from 2011 June to November 2011, we can see that it topped out within this orange range, more so within proximity to the 2.272. And as we continue to go about and see, I just applied that prior Fibonacci retracement to phase 1 of cycle 2. Now I'm applying it to phase 2 of cycle 2, where we can see again from the top of 2013 in November here all the way down to the low here in August of 2015, moving all the way up to, again, the orange zone, a little bit above, but all still in terms of an actual Fibonacci retracement within the proximity of the 2.272. Again, really the main idea is the fact that it's all within that orange range. And then now moving into phase 1 of cycle 3, do the same thing once more. Bear market or bull market top of 20, going back to here December of 2017, moving into the bear market low, phase 1 here 2018. So this first bottom move up, then we see here the second double bottom again, March crash, COVID crash, March 2020, Black Thursday, moving up here 64,000. We set the double top, bear market down to the 0.854. Then we've seen so far what I believe is essentially an impulse wave up to, again, this orange zone here, which in its entirety is approximately 180K up to 245,000, with the 272 being it, rounding it up, 209,000, 210,000. And the 2.319 specifically is what phase 1 of cycle 2 hit last time around, more precisely or approximately, which sits around, rounding it up, 228,000. It's also interesting is, again, you'll note that 64 to 69K here hit the 1.7 or the 1.618. We go back to phase 1 cycle 2, again redrawing the same retracement. You'll also see here that back in April of 2013, also at the 1.618, and then moved up to, again, the orange zone, again with proximity to the 2.272. And also just to point out the fact, which I pointed it out in the last video, I believe, but as I said, I mean, back here in 2013 of April is when the first peak of phase 1 of cycle 2, and then fast forward to phase 1 cycle 3, we see the first peak here again with respect to the 1.618 also happening in April. 8 years later, again, just being double the time span of 4 years, associative commonly with the whole, cyclical, kind of with the periodicity, the to use a technical term, the enantiodromia, where we cyclically, periodically, will see Bitcoin transition from its bear markets into its bull markets, where we see one thing, a bear market, for example here, bear market, and then ultimately set its low here, then it then enters that liminal period where it starts to now transition into the bull market here, which really, I mean, Bitcoin's been in a bull market since going all the way back to 2018. This whole quote-unquote bear market right here was really just a lengthening of what happened back here from April 2013 to July of 2013 with respect to the whole notion of the lengthening of the phases or cycles, and the bull markets being less bullish and the bear markets being less bearish. But that was all that I wanted to go over and update in this video. As I said, if this pattern plays out, then it will break sometime late February, early March. Unless there's a fake out, then it probably could break out towards the upside, maybe late March, early April. But as I said, that's all that I wanted to go over and update in this video. So as always, I know this is meant to be financial advice, but all that being said and everything gone over, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.